Hello and welcome to today's lesson, which is solving quadratics by factorising. Now, it's worth saying if you haven't watched the factorising video, so factorising with a letter in front of the x squared and without a letter in front of the x squared, it's worth watching that video first. I'll put the link below in the description. But let's have a look at this one here. Now, you'll notice that this is already factorised. Now, I just want to explain a little part here before I get onto this. So it might be worth getting these in your notes just so you understand where this has come from. So when I've got two brackets like this, so I will write this one down for now, I'll come back to it in a second. If I've got two brackets like this, that means the left bracket multiplied by the right bracket. Now, if I know that that's equal to 0, so let's forget that these are brackets. I've got one thing multiplied by another thing, and I know that that's equal to 0, okay? Now the question you've got to ask yourself is, if I've got two things which multiply together to make 0, what could those things be? Well, the only way to get 0 is to multiply by 0. So in this case, this could be 0 times by 3. It could be 0 times by 4. No matter what it is, A could be equal to 0, okay? And on the other side, it could be the other way around. It could be 0 times by 3, 4 times by 0. So here, if I've got two things which are multiplied together to make 0, that means that either the first one must be equal to 0, so A must be equal to 0, or this bracket here must be equal to 0, or the other bracket here must be equal to 0. Okay, so if I've got something which is equal to 0 and they're both multiplied together, then either the first one must be equal to 0 or that second one must be equal to 0. So what does that mean in terms of this one here? So let's have a go at example 1. Remember to make sure you're getting these down in your notes. The only way to learn maths is to do it. So here I've got x plus 6, x minus 3, and this is equal to 0. Now, in the new style GCSE, I see questions come up like this, and it's the multiple choice ones. So it's like A, B, C, D, and you're asked to figure out which one it is. So here I've got this bracket times by this bracket equal to 0, and the question says solve. Now remember that solve means to find the unknown, and in this I'm going to find out what x is. Okay? Now, because I've got two things which multiply together to make 0, and I know that either this one here must be equal to 0, or this one here must be equal to 0, then what I can say is that x plus 6 is equal to 0, or the second bracket must be equal to 0. And that's because I've got two things which multiply together. So either my first one must be equal to 0 or my second one must be equal to 0. Okay? And then I solve these like a normal equation. Okay? So x plus 6 is equal to 0. If I'm solving an equation, I need to find out what the unknown is. So it's going to be minus 6 minus 6. So x is equal to minus 6, negative 6. And with this one here, to get rid of this minus 3, I add 3, add 3. So that's going to cancel with that. I should probably have cancelled that one there. So on the left-hand side, I just end up with x. And on the right-hand side, I end up with 3. Now, you might be thinking to yourself here, how can you have two values? Well, it's a common misconception that there's only ever one answer to something. If you think about me throwing this pen above me throwing the pen in the air, and what happens here is if I put my hand like this, how many times does the pen cross this when I throw it up? Let's do it. So this isn't going to work on video, but let's try it. So throw it up. So if you go back and pause it, what's happening here is as this pen lid goes up, my question was, how many times does the pen lid pass my hand? So the thing is, what happens is, as I'm throwing it up, it goes past on the way up and on the way down. So I'll do it again. Okay, so it's going past on the way up and on the way down. So there's actually two answers to that. And in a very similar way, there's two answers to this as well. x is equal to minus 6 and, or x is equal to 3. So there's actually two solutions here, and we solve them by solving both brackets. Okay, let's have a look at another question. So minus 6 and 3. So with this one here, let's go with example 2. So this isn't a common one that comes up. In fact, this comes up very rarely, but when it does come up, people panic with it, and it's exactly the same process. Here I've got two things which are multiplied together to make 0. So what this means is that either the first one must be equal to 0, or this bracket here must be equal to 0. And then I'm going to solve them both separately. So divided by 3, 3x divided by 3 is just equal to x. 0 divided by 3 is equal to 0. There's my first solution. And on this one, plus 6. So x plus 6 is just x minus 6 plus 6 is just x. And 0 plus 6 is equal to 6. And there's my two solutions again. X is equal to 0 and x is equal to 6. Now, you might have noticed with this that I haven't started factorising yet. So this is the second part of what the question usually looks like. So let's have a look now at one where we, these two here. So I've got one here. I'm going to go through one. Then I'm going to tell you to pause and have a go at one yourself. And then I'm going to go through it as well. So this is example 3 now. So here I've got x squared plus 7x plus 12 is equal to 0. Now remember, notice the title of this. It says solve quadratics via factorising. So a quadratic is when the highest power in an equation or expression is equal to 2. Solve means to find out what x is, and factorising means put into the brackets, so put into double brackets. Remember, if you're struggling with factorise here, make sure you're looking at the link below for factorising and make sure you're having a go at that first. So, when I'm factorising a quadratic without a number in front of the x squared, I need something that multiplies together to make this last number and adds together to make this middle number. So the first thing I do is I work out the multiples of 12. So the multiples of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, and because I've got to 4 I can stop there. So I need two things that multiply together to make 12 but add together to make 7, and in this case that's going to be equal to 3 and 4. So it's going to be x plus 3 and x plus 4, and then I've got something which looks like the questions I was doing before. So I've got two things which multiply together to make 0. So that means that either my first one must be equal to 0 or my second one must be equal to 0. So then I'm going to minus 3, x is equal to negative 3, minus 4, x is equal to negative 4. Brilliant. And this comes up in foundation and in higher, okay? These questions come up literally just like this. So, pause now, make this big, have a go at that one on the right-hand side. Okay, hopefully you did have a go at that, because remember, the only way to learn maths is to do it. So, I will go through this one. Example 4. Here I've got x squared plus 11x plus 18 is equal to 0. Okay, so I need two things that multiply together to make 18 and add together. I always like to put them on top like this. Multiply together to make 18, add together to make 11. So it's going to be 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. Okay, 4 doesn't go, 5 doesn't go, and then I'm back to 6 so I can stop there. So these are all the multiples of 18, 1 and 18. So I need one of these that add together to make 11, and that's going to be 2 plus 9. So then I put that into brackets, x plus 2, x plus 9 is equal to 0. And then I'm going to solve this. So I have x plus 2 is equal to 0, or x plus 9 is equal to 0. So then minus 2, minus 2. So x is equal to negative 2. And then minus 9, minus 9. X is equal to minus 9. And there's my two solutions. And that's that question done. So let's just check the answers to that. Brilliant. So what makes these questions harder? Well, it's always the same. What makes anything harder? Dealing with negatives, okay? Always makes things that little bit harder. So again, I'm going to have a go at the one on the left, and then I want you to pause and have a go at the one on the right, and I'm going to go through both. So with this one here, this now is example 5. Example 5. So I've got x squared plus 2x minus 15 is equal to 0. So I need two things that multiply together to make negative 15 and add together to make 2. So let's do the multiples of 15 on the side. So that's going to be 1 and 15. 2 doesn't go. 3 does go. 3 and 5. 4 doesn't go. Back to 5, so I can stop there. Now, if you remember when we did the factorising quadratics, the problem I had with this is that when it's a negative, any two numbers which multiply together to make a negative means that either one must be positive and one must be negative. Because to get a negative value, a positive times a negative is a negative, or a negative times a positive. In case you're not sure, just put them over here. So a positive times a positive, we know is a positive. A positive times a negative is equal to a negative. A negative times a positive is equal to a negative. And a negative times a negative is equal to a positive. So because I've got a negative value, it must mean that these symbols are different. So which combination of these with different symbols gives me 2? Well, it's not going to be 1 and 15, because 1 take away 15 is minus 14, and the other way around is positive 14. But 3 take away 5 is minus 2. I don't want minus 2. I do want positive 2, so it's going to be minus 3 plus 5, because plus 5 take away 3 is equal to positive 2. So here I've got x minus 3 and x plus 5 is equal to 0, and then it's in the format that I want it. So here now I've got, don't need that bracket, x minus 3 is equal to 0, or x plus 5 is equal to 0. So either the left hand bracket is equal to 0 or the right hand bracket is equal to 0. So then I can add 3, x is equal to 3, or minus 5, x is equal to negative 5. And there are your two solutions. Okay, that might come up at the start of the higher paper, or maybe about 5 or 6 questions in, or right at the very end of the foundation paper. Okay, but they do come up, these questions, and they're worth 3 or 4 marks. Sometimes they ask you to factorise first and then go on to solve. Okay, so pause now, have a go at that one on the right hand side. Okay, I'm going to have a go at this one for you. So this is example 6. So I've got x squared plus 2x minus 24, is equal to 0. So I need something that times is together to make 24 and adds together to make 2. So with this one, the factors of 24, now this is quite difficult because there's loads of factors of 24. So 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 does also go into it 8 times, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. 4 also goes into it 6 times. 5 doesn't, but then we're back to 6, so I can stop there. Because this is negative, I know that the symbols on both my numbers must be different. So I want one positive and one negative to make positive 2. So positive and negative, well, it's not this one. 2 minus 12 is minus 10, no. 3 minus 8 minus 5, no. It's going to be here. So plus 4 minus 6 is minus 2. I don't want minus 2, I want positive 2. So it's going to be equal to plus 6 minus 4, because 6 take away 4 is 2. So, x minus 4, x plus 6 is equal to 0. So then I know that x minus 4 is equal to 0, or x plus 6 is equal to 0. So, plus 4 plus 4, x is equal to 4. Minus 6 minus 6, x is equal to negative 6. And then there are your two solutions. Okay, let's have a go at, let's step it up a bit. Okay, so what's different about this question here? Well, the thing that's different about this question is the fact that there's no number on the side. So actually, when we're factorising this, we're not using the normal techniques that I would usually use. What example is this now? Example 7. Definitely worth getting this one in your notes because a lot of people forget this one and don't remember how to do it. But what we're doing here, x squared plus 7x is equal to 0. I'm not factorising quadratics, I'm factorising into a single bracket. So what goes into x squared and into 7x? Well, the answer to that is x. So I can take x out as a common factor. So what do I need to times by x to get x squared? The answer is x. And what do I need to times by x to get 7x? The answer is plus 7. So I'm not factorising quadratic. Well, I am factorising the quadratic, but I'm factorising it into a single bracket because that last term isn't there. So then, I've got two things which multiply together to make 0. So either my first one is equal to 0. Actually, that's a solution. That's done. Or my second one is equal to 0. So minus 7, x is equal to negative 7. And they're my two answers. I'm done. So I always see people kind of like writing the brackets first like this. But actually, there's not two brackets here. There's only one bracket. Okay? So, let's have a go at my next question. Okay. So, this again is from a higher paper. This one wouldn't come up in foundation. Now, what's different about this one here? What's making this one a little bit harder? Well, this one here, the thing that's making it harder is that 2 which is in front of the x squared. 2x squared. Now, this, for me, makes these questions so much harder because it's a lot trickier process to factorise when there's a number in front of the x squared. So this one here is example 8. Okay, this is the last example that we're going to be doing here on these. Now, so it's going to be 2x squared plus 5x minus 12 is equal to 0. Now, when I'm factorising with a number in front of the x squared, there's a very long process that I need to follow. And if you're not sure on that process, use the video below to have a look at the video on factorising quadratics with a number in front of x squared. Notice here, there's the 2 in front of it there. Okay, so let's go through all the steps. The first thing I do is 2 times by minus 12, which is minus 24. So I need something that multiplies together to make minus 24 and adds together to make the 5. So let's do the factors of 24. I know I've already done those, but 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Now I need something that multiplies together to make 24. These are all the factor pairs for 24, but adds together to make 5. Now, because it's minus 24, I know that one of them is going to be positive and one of them is going to be negative, and I need that to make this 5 here. So 1 minus 24 is minus 23, so it's not that one. 2 minus 12 is minus 10, no. 3 minus 8 is equal to minus 5, but I want positive 5, so it's going to be plus 8 minus 3. 4 take away 6 is 2, so it's not that one, it's not any of those, it's this one here. Now, it's important, these aren't your brackets. The next thing you need to do is you need to split that middle value up into both of these. Okay? If you're finding this hard now, make sure you watch the video on factorising quadratics with a number in front of the x squared. So I'm splitting this up into these two here. So it's going to be 2x squared minus 3x plus 8x minus 12 is equal to 0. And then I factorise both of these separately. So the only thing I can take out of this is an x. So it's going to be x bracket 2x minus 3. What can I take out of this one? I can take out a 4 from both of those. So it's going to be 4 bracket 2x minus 3. And this is still equal to 0. So let's now write that out. Plus 4 bracket 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now the thing which is in common in both of these is this bracket. So I'm taking that bracket out as a common factor. So I end up with this bracket in front, which is this. And if I take that out as a common factor, what am I left with? Well, I'm left with x plus 4, which is equal to 0. I still haven't finished. I've still got to solve to find x. I've factorised now, but I've still got to do the end part. So now, because I've got two things which are multiplied together to make 0, I know that 2x minus 3 is equal to 0, or x plus 4 is equal to 0. And we haven't actually seen one of these. It's a two-step equation, not too tricky. First thing I want to do is add 3. So I end up with 2x is equal to 3. Then divided by 2, x is equal to 3 divided by 2, which is 1.5. I'm going to write it as a fraction. X is equal to 3 over 2. So that's my first solution. And then take away 4. So x, I'm going to write it down here just so they're next to each other, is equal to minus 4. And that's my second solution. Now look at all that work there. This is usually worth, well, you can see it's worth 3 marks at GCSE higher. Okay. So let's just check our answer. Brilliant. So I'm going to put some questions up for you. Make sure you're having a go at these. Remember, the only way to learn maths is to do it. So let's get these questions up. I'll make it big for you so you can see it. So pause now and have a go at these questions. Notice that all of these questions are from past papers. They have come up and they will come up again. Okay, I'm going to pop the answers on as well. So mark those in green for me. Brilliant. So thank you for watching this lesson on factorising and solving quadratics via factorisation. Make sure you're having a go at these questions. So the only way to learn maths is to do it, and have a lovely day.